Sarah Martinez had always been smaller than her peers. At 5 feet 2 inches and barely weighing 110 pounds, she looked more like a college student than someone who belonged in Marine training. When she first walked into Camp Pendleton for her initial assessment, the other recruits couldn't help but stare. Some whispered among themselves, wondering if she had taken a wrong turn somewhere. The Marine Corps had recently opened combat roles to women, and Sarah was among the first wave of female recruits attempting to qualify for infantry positions. The decision hadn't been popular with everyone, and she could feel the weight of skeptical eyes wherever she went. Many believed that women simply didn't have what it took to handle the physical and mental demands of frontline combat. Sarah's journey to the Marines began in a small town in Texas, where she grew up on a ranch with her father and 2 older brothers. Her mother had passed away when Sarah was just 8 years old, leaving her to grow up in a household where strength was measured not by words, but by actions. Her father, a former Army sergeant, never treated her differently because she was a girl. If there was work to be done, everyone pitched in equally. On the ranch, Sarah learned to fix broken fences in scorching heat, help deliver calves in the middle of winter nights, and handle equipment that weighed more than she did. Her brothers initially tried to protect their little sister from the harder tasks, but Sarah would have none of it. She demanded to be treated as an equal, and eventually, that's exactly what happened. When Sarah announced her intention to join the Marines, her family wasn't surprised. What did surprise them was her determination to pursue combat roles. Her father sat her down for a long conversation, explaining the challenges she would face as a woman in a traditionally male environment. He didn't try to discourage her, but he wanted her to understand the reality of what lay ahead. The first few weeks at Camp Pendleton were exactly as difficult as Sarah had expected. The physical training was intense, designed to push recruits to their absolute limits and beyond. Every morning began at 4:30 with physical conditioning that included long runs, obstacle courses, and strength training. Sarah struggled with some of the exercises that required pure upper body strength, but she never quit. What bothered her more than the physical challenges were the comments from her fellow recruits. During breaks, she would often hear snickers and jokes about how long she would last. Some of the male recruits made bets about when she would wash out of the program. A few were openly hostile, believing that she was taking a spot that should belong to a man. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, their drill instructor, maintained strict discipline during training hours, but he couldn't control every conversation that happened in the barracks. Sarah learned to ignore most of the comments, but they still stung. She had expected skepticism, but the casual cruelty of some remarks surprised her. The breaking point came during a particularly challenging obstacle course exercise. The course included rope climbs, wall scaling, and a series of physical challenges designed to simulate combat conditions. Sarah had been struggling with the rope climb, her smaller frame making it difficult to maintain the grip strength needed for the full ascent. On her 3rd attempt, her hand slipped near the top of the rope. She fell approximately 12 feet, landing awkwardly on her left shoulder and side. The impact knocked the wind out of her, and she lay on the ground for several moments, trying to catch her breath. Pain shot through her shoulder and ribs, but she forced herself to stand up. Several of her fellow recruits began laughing. One of them, a large recruit named Johnson, made a comment loud enough for everyone to hear about how women belonged in the kitchen, not on obstacle courses. Another recruit suggested that maybe she should consider a different career path, something more suitable for someone her size. The laughter continued as Sarah walked slowly to the medical station. The corpsman on duty, an experienced Navy medic named Petty Officer Williams, examined her carefully. He was concerned about possible rib fractures and wanted to send her for X-rays immediately. Sarah protested, saying she was fine and wanted to continue training. Petty Officer Williams was firm but kind. He explained that injuries needed to be properly evaluated and treated regardless of how tough someone thought they were. Ignoring injuries could lead to permanent damage or complications that might end her military career before it really began. Sarah reluctantly agreed to the medical evaluation. The X-rays revealed 2 cracked ribs and significant bruising to her shoulder and back. The doctor recommended at least 2 weeks of limited activity, with no heavy lifting or strenuous physical training. Sarah felt devastated. She knew that missing 2 weeks of training would put her behind her class, and she might have to start over with a new group of recruits. When she returned to the barracks that evening, word of her injuries had already spread. Some of the recruits made jokes about how she had lasted longer than they expected, while others suggested this was proof that women weren't cut out for Marine training. Sarah lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, wondering if they might be right. The next morning, Sarah reported to the training office as instructed. She expected to be told that she would be recycled to a later training class or possibly discharged from the program entirely. Instead, she was told to report to Lieutenant Colonel Harrison's office immediately. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison had a reputation as a no-nonsense officer who didn't tolerate excuses or weakness. Sarah had seen him around the base, but had never spoken with him directly. As she walked to his office, she prepared herself for what she assumed would be a conversation about her future in the Marine Corps, or lack thereof. The office was decorated with various military awards and photographs from deployments around the world. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison was a tall, imposing figure with gray hair and intense blue eyes. He gestured for Sarah to take a seat and studied her quietly for several moments before speaking. He asked about her injuries and her recovery timeline. Sarah answered honestly, explaining that she expected to be cleared for full training in approximately 2 weeks. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison nodded and made some notes in a file that Sarah assumed contained her training records. Then, he asked a question that surprised her. He wanted to know why she had chosen to pursue infantry training instead of one of the other military occupational specialties available to women. Sarah thought carefully before answering, explaining her belief that she could contribute effectively in any role if given the opportunity to prove herself. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or asking follow-up questions. Sarah couldn't read his expression, and she had no idea whether he viewed her favorably or was simply going through the motions before recommending her dismissal from the program. After what felt like an eternity, Lieutenant Colonel Harrison closed the file and leaned back in his chair. He told Sarah that her training would continue, but with some modifications during her recovery period. She would attend all classroom sessions, participate in tactical exercises that didn't require heavy physical activity, and work with a physical therapist to ensure proper healing. Sarah felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. She was grateful for the opportunity to continue, but she worried about falling behind her peers and having to prove herself all over again when she returned to full training status. The following weeks were challenging in different ways than Sarah had expected. While her fellow recruits continued with regular physical training, she spent hours in classroom sessions studying tactics, weapons systems, and military history. She discovered that she had a natural aptitude for tactical thinking and strategy. During tactical exercises, Sarah found herself contributing ideas and solutions that impressed even the most skeptical instructors. Her small size, which had been seen as a disadvantage in physical training, actually proved useful in certain scenarios. She could move quietly and fit into spaces that larger recruits couldn't access. The physical therapy sessions were frustrating but necessary. Sarah worked with a civilian therapist who specialized in sports medicine and had experience with military injuries. The therapist was impressed with Sarah's dedication and pain tolerance, noting that she pushed herself harder than most patients. As her ribs healed and her strength returned, Sarah began participating in limited physical training. She started with basic exercises and gradually worked up to more challenging activities. Her performance had actually improved during her recovery period, partly due to the focused attention she had received and partly because of her renewed determination. The other recruits' attitudes towards Sarah began to shift subtly during this time. Some remained skeptical or hostile, but others started to respect her persistence and dedication. A few even began asking her questions about the tactical concepts she had been studying, recognizing that she had gained knowledge they lacked. Johnson, the recruit who had made the kitchen comment, continued to be openly dismissive of Sarah's abilities. He frequently made comments about her size and questioned whether she would be able to handle real combat situations. Sarah largely ignored him, but his constant negativity was wearing on her patience. The tension between Sarah and Johnson came to a head during a field exercise designed to simulate urban combat scenarios. The recruits were divided into teams and given various objectives to accomplish using tactical principles they had learned in training. Sarah's team was assigned a particularly challenging scenario that required both physical skill and strategic thinking. During the exercise, Johnson openly questioned Sarah's suggestions and made several comments about her qualifications to participate in the mission. Other team members began to take sides, creating conflict within the group that interfered with their ability to complete the exercise successfully. The instructors observed the team dynamics carefully, taking notes on how individual recruits performed under pressure and how they worked together as a unit. Leadership potential was considered just as important as individual physical abilities, and the ability to function effectively as part of a team was crucial for success in actual combat situations. Sarah's frustration with Johnson's behavior finally reached its breaking point. During a brief rest period, she confronted him directly, telling him that his attitude was hurting the entire team's performance. Johnson responded with another disparaging comment about women in combat roles, suggesting that Sarah should focus on supporting roles rather than trying to be something she wasn't. The confrontation attracted the attention of other recruits and instructors. Sarah kept her voice calm, but firm as she pointed out specific examples of how Johnson's negative attitude had interfered with their mission objectives. She challenged him to focus on the team's success rather than his personal opinions about her gender. Johnson's response was loud and hostile, attracting even more attention from around the training area. He made several crude comments about women's physical capabilities and suggested that Sarah was only still in the program because of political correctness rather than actual ability. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez quickly intervened, separating the two recruits and ordering them to report to his office after the exercise concluded. Sarah worried that the confrontation would reflect poorly on her, potentially damaging her chances of successfully completing the program. The remainder of the exercise proceeded more smoothly, with Johnson maintaining a sullen silence, while Sarah focused on helping her team complete their objectives. Despite the earlier conflict, the team managed to accomplish most of their assigned tasks, though not as efficiently as they might have under better circumstances. After the exercise ended, Sarah reported to Staff Sergeant Rodriguez's office as ordered. She expected a lecture about maintaining discipline and avoiding conflicts with fellow recruits. Instead, Staff Sergeant Rodriguez surprised her by asking for her perspective on what had happened during the exercise. Sarah explained the situation honestly, acknowledging her role in the confrontation while also detailing Johnson's behavior throughout their training. She emphasized her commitment to the program and her belief that personal conflicts were interfering with the team's effectiveness. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez listened carefully and asked several follow-up questions about specific incidents. Sarah realized that he had been observing the team dynamics more closely than she had initially understood. He seemed particularly interested in her observations about leadership and teamwork challenges. When Johnson arrived for his meeting, Sarah was dismissed but instructed to remain available for further discussion if needed. As she left the office, she wondered what consequences might result from the day's events and whether her military career was about to take another unexpected turn. The next morning brought news that would change everything. Sarah was informed that she had been selected for a special assignment that would take her away from regular recruit training for several weeks. The details were limited, but she was told to report to a different section of the base for further instructions. As Sarah gathered her gear and prepared for this new phase of her journey, she reflected on how much had changed since her first day at Camp Pendleton. The laughter and skepticism from her fellow recruits had been painful, but it had also strengthened her resolve to prove herself worthy of the Marine title she was working so hard to earn. Sarah's special assignment took her to a classified training facility located in the mountains of California. The facility was unlike anything she had seen during her time at Camp Pendleton. High-tech equipment, specialized training areas, and an atmosphere of serious professionalism replaced the more traditional military training environment she had grown accustomed to. Upon arrival, Sarah learned that she had been selected for an experimental program designed to evaluate new approaches to small unit tactics and reconnaissance operations. The program was being conducted in partnership with several elite military units, including Marine Force Reconnaissance, Navy SEALs, and Army Special Forces. The selection criteria for the program had been kept confidential, but Sarah gradually learned that candidates were chosen based on a combination of factors including tactical aptitude, physical resilience, adaptability under stress, and leadership potential demonstrated during training. Her performance during the urban combat exercise, despite the conflict with Johnson, had apparently impressed the evaluators more than she had realized. Sarah was one of 12 recruits selected from various training programs across different military branches. The group included 10 men and 2 women, all of whom had demonstrated exceptional abilities in their respective training programs. Sarah was surprised to discover that several of the male participants had also faced significant challenges and skepticism during their training. The program director was Colonel Patricia Valdez, a decorated Marine officer with extensive combat experience in Iraq and Afghanistan. Colonel Valdez had been one of the first women to serve in certain combat roles and had faced many of the same challenges that current female recruits were experiencing. Her presence in the program sent a clear message about the military's commitment to evaluating personnel based on ability rather than gender. During the initial briefing, Colonel Valdez explained that the program would test new training methodologies and tactical approaches designed to maximize the effectiveness of small military units. Participants would undergo intensive training in advanced marksmanship, reconnaissance techniques, urban warfare, and unconventional tactics. The program would last 8 weeks and would conclude with a comprehensive evaluation exercise. Colonel Valdez emphasized that the program was experimental and that not all participants would successfully complete it. However, those who did complete the program would have opportunities to pursue advanced military specialties and potential assignment to elite units. For Sarah, this represented a chance to prove herself at the highest levels of military service. The training began with advanced marksmanship instruction using weapon systems Sarah had never encountered before. The course included precision shooting at extended ranges, shooting while moving, and engaging multiple targets in complex scenarios. Sarah discovered that her smaller frame actually provided certain advantages in shooting positions and weapon stability. The marksmanship instructor was Gunnery Sergeant Michael Chun, a former Marine sniper with multiple combat deployments. Gunnery Sergeant Chun was initially skeptical about having female participants in the program, but he evaluated all students strictly on their performance rather than their background or gender. Sarah's shooting abilities impressed Gunnery Sergeant Chun almost immediately. Her natural steadiness, attention to detail, and ability to remain calm under pressure made her an exceptional marksman. Within the first week, she was consistently outperforming several of the male participants in various shooting exercises. The other participants began to take notice of Sarah's shooting abilities. Unlike her previous training environment, where success often generated resentment or skepticism, the atmosphere in this program was more professional. Excellence was respected regardless of who demonstrated it, and participants were encouraged to learn from each other's strengths. One of Sarah's fellow participants was Staff Sergeant David Kim, an Army Ranger who had already completed several combat deployments. Staff Sergeant Kim had initially been surprised to see women in the program, but he quickly recognized Sarah's abilities and began seeking her advice on shooting techniques. Their professional relationship helped establish Sarah's credibility with other participants. The reconnaissance training portion of the program proved to be another area where Sarah excelled. Her small size allowed her to move through terrain and urban environments with minimal detection. She could hide in spaces that larger operators couldn't access and could observe target areas for extended periods without being noticed. The reconnaissance instructor was Chief Petty Officer Lisa Rodriguez, a Navy intelligence specialist with extensive experience in surveillance operations. Chief Rodriguez immediately recognized Sarah's potential and began working with her on advanced observation and reporting techniques. Under Chief Rodriguez's guidance, Sarah learned to use sophisticated surveillance equipment and communication systems. During one particularly challenging reconnaissance exercise, participants were required to infiltrate a simulated enemy compound, gather intelligence on target activities, and extract without detection. The exercise was designed to test both individual skills and team coordination under realistic conditions. Sarah was assigned to a 3-person team that included Staff Sergeant Kim and Petty Officer First Class James Wilson, a Navy SEAL trainee. The team's mission was to observe and report on activities in a heavily guarded compound for a 48-hour period. Success required not only individual competence, but seamless teamwork and communication. The compound was defended by military personnel acting as opposition forces who were actively trying to detect and capture infiltrating teams. Previous teams had experienced mixed success, with several being detected and captured before completing their missions. The exercise was designed to simulate real-world conditions as closely as possible. Sarah's team spent hours planning their approach, studying aerial photographs, and discussing contingency plans. Sarah suggested an infiltration route that would take advantage of her size and mobility while positioning the team for optimal observation of the target areas. Staff Sergeant Kim and Petty Officer Wilson initially had concerns about the route's complexity, but agreed to trust Sarah's assessment. The infiltration phase went exactly as Sarah had planned. Her ability to move quietly and navigate tight spaces allowed the team to access an observation position that provided excellent visibility of the compound, while remaining concealed from the defending forces. The position was in a location that larger operators would have been unable to reach or use effectively. Over the next 48 hours, Sarah's team gathered extensive intelligence on the compound's activities, guard rotations, and security procedures. Sarah's attention to detail and systematic approach to observation ensured that they collected comprehensive information that would be valuable for planning future operations against similar targets. The extraction phase proved to be the most challenging part of the mission. The defending forces had become increasingly aggressive in their search patterns, and several other teams had already been detected and captured. Sarah's team needed to exit the compound area without being seen while carrying sensitive equipment and intelligence materials. Sarah proposed an extraction route that was different from their infiltration path, reasoning that the defenders would likely be watching areas where they expected teams to exit. Her route required rappelling down a cliff face and crossing a stream, but it would avoid the areas where defending forces were concentrated. Staff Sergeant Kim and Petty Officer Wilson were initially concerned about the technical difficulty of Sarah's proposed route, particularly given her smaller size and strength limitations. However, Sarah had proven herself during training, and they agreed to follow her plan after she demonstrated her ability to handle the required techniques. The extraction went flawlessly. Sarah's route choice proved to be exactly right, and the team successfully exited the compound area without detection. They were the only team to complete the entire 48-hour mission without being discovered by the defending forces, a result that impressed both instructors and fellow participants. Following the reconnaissance exercise, Sarah noticed a significant change in how she was perceived by other program participants. The combination of her marksmanship abilities and reconnaissance skills had established her as a valuable team member rather than someone who needed special accommodation or protection. She was increasingly sought out as a partner for training exercises and tactical planning sessions. The urban warfare portion of the program introduced new challenges that tested different aspects of military skills. Participants trained in complex building environments, learning to clear rooms, navigate booby traps, and engage targets in confined spaces. The training was physically demanding and required split-second decision-making under extreme stress. Sarah's smaller size continued to provide advantages in urban environments. She could move through buildings more quickly than larger operators and could take cover in spaces that others couldn't use. Her shooting accuracy remained consistently high even under the stress of fast-moving urban scenarios. The urban warfare instructor was Major Robert Thompson, a Marine infantry officer with extensive combat experience in Iraq's urban battlefields. Major Thompson had initially been skeptical about including women in urban warfare training, believing that the physical demands and close-quarters combat requirements favored larger, stronger operators. However, Major Thompson quickly recognized that Sarah's unique combination of skills made her highly effective in urban environments. Her speed, accuracy, and tactical thinking compensated for any physical strength limitations. He began using Sarah as an example of how different physical attributes could be leveraged effectively in combat situations. During a complex building clearing exercise, Sarah's team was assigned to clear a multi-story structure that contained unknown numbers of hostile forces. The exercise required careful coordination and communication as team members moved through the building systematically, eliminating threats while avoiding civilian casualties. Sarah was assigned the point position, responsible for being the first person to enter and clear each room. This was typically considered one of the most dangerous and demanding positions in the team formation. Major Thompson wanted to see how Sarah would perform under maximum stress and responsibility. The exercise began with Sarah's team making entry into the building's ground floor. Sarah moved methodically from room to room, using proper clearing techniques while maintaining communication with her team members. Her movements were smooth and confident, showing no hesitation despite the pressure of her assigned role. As the team progressed through the building, they encountered increasingly complex scenarios, including hostage situations, booby traps, and multiple hostile forces in confined spaces. Sarah's performance remained consistently excellent, making quick decisions and accurate shots while maintaining awareness of her team's position and status. In one particularly challenging scenario, Sarah's team encountered a room containing both hostile forces and civilian hostages. The situation required immediate action to prevent harm to the hostages while eliminating the threats. Sarah had to make split-second decisions about target identification and engagement angles. Sarah successfully engaged 2 hostile targets while avoiding injury to 3 civilian hostages. Her accuracy under extreme pressure impressed Major Thompson, who had seen many experienced operators struggle with similar scenarios. Sarah's success was due to a combination of technical skill, mental preparation, and natural ability to remain calm under stress. The building clearing exercise concluded with Sarah's team successfully completing their mission in the fastest time recorded during the training program. They had eliminated all hostile forces, rescued all hostages, and completed the mission without any casualties to team members or civilians. Sarah's performance as point person had been exceptional throughout the exercise. Following the urban warfare training, program participants moved to the final phase of instruction, which focused on unconventional tactics and small unit leadership. This portion of the program was designed to prepare participants for independent operations in complex environments where standard procedures might not apply. Sarah found herself increasingly taking on leadership roles during training exercises. Other participants began looking to her for tactical advice and decision-making, recognizing her ability to think clearly under pressure and develop effective solutions to complex problems. Her leadership style was collaborative but decisive, earning respect from teammates and instructors alike. The final examination for the program would be a week-long field exercise that combined all of the skills participants had learned during their 8 weeks of training. Teams would be given complex missions requiring marksmanship, reconnaissance, urban warfare, and leadership abilities. The exercise would be conducted in realistic conditions with minimal instructor supervision. Sarah was selected as team leader for her 4-person unit, which included Staff Sergeant Kim, Petty Officer Wilson, and Corporal Maria Santos, an Air Force security specialist. Sarah was the smallest and youngest member of the team, but her performance throughout the program had earned her the leadership position. The team's mission was to infiltrate a heavily defended area, gather intelligence on enemy capabilities, conduct precision strikes against specific targets, and extract without detection. The mission would require all of the skills they had learned during the program and would test their ability to work together under extreme pressure. As Sarah prepared her team for the final exercise, she reflected on how far she had come since those first difficult days at Camp Pendleton. The laughter and skepticism she had faced seemed like a distant memory now. She had proven herself capable of excellence at the highest levels of military training, and she was ready to demonstrate that capability one final time. The final exercise began at dawn on a Monday morning with Sarah's team being inserted by helicopter into mountainous terrain 50 miles from their objective. They carried enough equipment and supplies for a week of independent operations, including advanced weapons systems, communication gear, and specialized reconnaissance equipment. Sarah's leadership was immediately tested as the team encountered unexpected weather conditions that forced them to modify their planned route to the target area. Heavy fog and rain reduced visibility and made navigation more challenging, but Sarah adapted quickly, using her map-reading skills and tactical judgment to find an alternate approach. The team moved through difficult terrain for 2 days, carefully avoiding detection while making steady progress toward their objective. Sarah's small size proved advantageous during this phase, as she could scout ahead through areas that were too confined for the larger team members to navigate quickly. Staff Sergeant Kim, who had initially questioned having a female team leader, found himself increasingly impressed with Sarah's decision-making and tactical awareness. Her ability to read terrain, anticipate problems, and adjust plans accordingly demonstrated the kind of battlefield intelligence that couldn't be taught in classroom settings. On the 3rd day, the team reached their reconnaissance objective, a simulated enemy command post located in a heavily fortified compound. Sarah's mission was to observe and report on enemy activities for 24 hours while remaining undetected. The intelligence gathered would be used to plan precision strikes against key targets within the compound. Sarah positioned her team in an observation post that provided excellent visibility of the target area while offering concealment and escape routes if they were discovered. The position required climbing skills and the ability to remain motionless for extended periods, both areas where Sarah's training and natural abilities serve her well. During the observation period, Sarah's team documented enemy patrol patterns, identified key personnel, and mapped the compound's defensive capabilities. Sarah's attention to detail and systematic approach ensured that they collected comprehensive intelligence that would be crucial for the next phase of their mission. The intelligence gathering phase was completed without detection, but as Sarah's team prepared to move to their next objective, they received an emergency communication. Another team participating in the exercise had become pinned down by enemy forces and was requesting immediate assistance. Sarah had to decide whether to abandon her planned mission to help the other team. Sarah quickly analyzed the situation and determined that her team could provide effective support while still accomplishing their primary mission objectives. She developed a plan that would allow them to assist the pinned-down team while maintaining the element of surprise for their own strike mission. The rescue operation required Sarah's team to approach a defended position and eliminate enemy forces that had surrounded their fellow participants. Sarah positioned her team members to provide overlapping fields of fire while she moved to a forward position where she could engage targets with precision rifle fire. The engagement began with Sarah taking precise shots at long range, eliminating key enemy personnel and disrupting their defensive positions. Her marksmanship was flawless under pressure, with each shot carefully aimed to maximize tactical advantage while minimizing risk to the surrounded team. Staff Sergeant Kim and the other team members provided supporting fire while Sarah continued to engage targets from her advanced position. The coordination between team members was seamless, demonstrating the kind of teamwork that develops through intense training and mutual trust. Within minutes, Sarah's team had eliminated the enemy forces and freed the surrounded participants. The rescue operation was completed without casualties and with minimal expenditure of ammunition, demonstrating both tactical efficiency and precise execution under combat conditions. The rescued team leader, a Marine captain with extensive combat experience, was amazed to discover that his rescue had been conducted by a team led by someone he initially assumed was barely out of basic training. When he learned about Sarah's background and performance during the program, his amazement turned to professional respect. Following the successful rescue operation, Sarah's team continued with their primary mission, moving to conduct precision strikes against designated targets within the enemy compound. The strikes required careful timing and coordination to achieve maximum effect while maintaining operational security. Sarah positioned her team members to provide security and communication support while she moved to a firing position that allowed engagement of the primary target. The shot required extreme precision at long range under challenging environmental conditions, including wind and variable lighting. The target was a simulated enemy commander who appeared only briefly at specific times during his daily routine. Sarah had one opportunity to make the shot, and failure would compromise the entire mission. She had trained extensively for this type of engagement, but the pressure of the final examination added an extra dimension of stress. Sarah controlled her breathing and heart rate as she waited for the target to appear. When a moment came, her shot was perfect, striking the target precisely and completing the primary mission objective. The elimination was confirmed by observers, and Sarah's team received orders to proceed to their extraction point. The extraction phase of the mission proved to be the most challenging part of the entire exercise. Enemy forces had been alerted by the earlier rescue operation and were actively searching for Sarah's team. Multiple checkpoints and patrol units were positioned between the team and their extraction point. Sarah guided her team through a complex route that avoided most of the enemy's search efforts while still reaching the extraction point on schedule. Her navigation skills and tactical awareness allowed the team to remain undetected despite the increased enemy activity in the area. The final challenge came when Sarah's team reached the extraction point only to discover that enemy forces had established a checkpoint directly adjacent to the landing zone. The helicopter was scheduled to arrive in 30 minutes, and there was no time to find an alternate location. Sarah developed a plan to eliminate the checkpoint while maintaining the element of surprise necessary for a successful extraction. The plan required precise timing and coordination, with each team member assigned specific responsibilities and target assignments. The assault on the checkpoint was swift and decisive. Sarah's team eliminated all enemy personnel within seconds, securing the landing zone just as their extraction helicopter appeared on the horizon. The mission concluded with a flawless extraction, completing one of the most successful exercises in the program's history. When Sarah's team returned to the training facility, they were debriefed by the program staff and evaluated on their performance throughout the week-long exercise. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, with instructors praising both individual performance and team coordination. Colonel Valdez personally debriefed Sarah on her leadership performance during the exercise. The colonel was particularly impressed with Sarah's ability to adapt to changing circumstances, make difficult decisions under pressure, and maintain team effectiveness throughout the mission. The program concluded with a formal graduation ceremony attended by senior officers from all military branches. Sarah was recognized as the honor graduate of the program, achieving the highest overall scores in marksmanship, tactics, leadership, and mission performance. Her achievement was particularly significant as the first woman to complete the program with top honors. General Patricia Morrison, the commanding general of Marine Corps Training Command, attended the graduation ceremony and personally congratulated Sarah on her achievements. General Morrison had followed Sarah's progress through the program and was impressed with both her individual performance and her impact on the overall program effectiveness. During the ceremony, General Morrison announced that Sarah had been selected for assignment to Marine Force Reconnaissance, one of the most elite units in the Marine Corps. The assignment represented recognition of her exceptional abilities and opened doors to advanced military career opportunities that few Marines ever achieve. As the ceremony concluded, Sarah received orders to report to Marine Force Reconnaissance for advanced training and eventual assignment to an operational unit. The journey from basic training recruit to elite Special Operations Marine had taken less than a year, but it represented the culmination of years of personal preparation and determination. Several weeks after graduation, Sarah received an unexpected visitor at her new duty station. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, her former drill instructor from Camp Pendleton, had requested permission to meet with her. Sarah was curious about what had prompted the visit from someone she hadn't seen since her early training days. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez explained that he had followed Sarah's progress through various training programs and was proud of her achievements. He had come to personally apologize for not doing more to address the negative attitudes and comments she had faced during basic training. He recognized that her treatment had been unfair and that her potential had been overlooked by many. More importantly, Staff Sergeant Rodriguez revealed that Sarah's experience had led to changes in training procedures and policies designed to ensure that all recruits were evaluated fairly regardless of their background or physical characteristics. Her success had opened doors for other women and had demonstrated the importance of looking beyond surface impressions. Sarah was moved by Staff Sergeant Rodriguez's visit and his acknowledgement of the challenges she had faced. However, she harbored no resentment about her early experiences. The difficulties had made her stronger and more determined, ultimately contributing to her success in achieving her goals. During their conversation, Staff Sergeant Rodriguez mentioned that Johnson, the recruit who had been most vocal in his criticism of Sarah, had washed out of the Marine Corps training program after failing to meet performance standards. His negative attitude and inability to work effectively with others had ultimately undermined his own military career. Sarah felt no satisfaction in learning about Johnson's failure. She understood that military service required certain qualities of character and teamwork that not everyone possessed. Her focus remained on her own continued development and her responsibilities to her new unit and fellow Marines. The conversation with Staff Sergeant Rodriguez provided closure on Sarah's early military experiences while reinforcing her commitment to excellence in her new role. She had proven that determination, skill, and character were more important than physical size or gender in determining military success. As Sarah prepared for her first operational assignment with Marine Force Reconnaissance, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. The laughter and skepticism she had faced during basic training seemed insignificant now compared to the respect and recognition she had earned through demonstrated performance. The final confirmation of Sarah's transformation from doubted recruit to respected Marine came during a chance encounter at the base commissary. She was approached by a group of female recruits who had heard about her achievements and wanted to meet her. They thanked her for proving that women could succeed in combat roles and asked for advice about pursuing their own military goals. Sarah's response was simple and direct. She told the recruits that success came through preparation, determination, and performance rather than through complaints or excuses. She emphasized that respect had to be earned through demonstrated ability and that gender was irrelevant when competence was clearly established. The encounter reminded Sarah that her achievements extended beyond her own personal goals. She had become a role model and had opened doors for others who would follow. The responsibility was one that she accepted gladly, understanding that her success carried obligations to support and encourage others. Years later, as Sarah advanced through increasingly responsible positions in special operations, she would often think back to those early days when Marines laughed at her injuries and questioned her capabilities. The memory served as motivation to continue pushing boundaries and proving that excellence comes in many different forms. General Morrison, who had presented Sarah with her program graduation honors, would later say that Sarah's story represented the best of military values: perseverance, courage, and the determination to succeed despite obstacles. Her journey from doubted recruit to elite operator had inspired changes throughout the military that benefited all service members. The general's assessment proved prophetic. Sarah's career continued to flourish, and she eventually achieved senior leadership positions where she could influence training and policy decisions. Her experiences had taught her the importance of recognizing potential in all forms and ensuring that opportunity was based on ability rather than assumptions. Sarah Martinez had started her military journey as a small-town ranch girl who wanted to prove herself as a Marine. She achieved that goal and much more, becoming a symbol of what was possible when talent was given the opportunity to flourish regardless of initial skepticism or traditional expectations. The laughter that had once greeted her injuries had long since been replaced by the quiet respect accorded to proven professionals. Sarah had earned her place through performance, and her story continued to inspire others who faced their own challenges in pursuing their dreams of military service.